You've been told that crying is weakness, a thing to hide, something to grow out of. But here's what's strange. Of the roughly 8 million species alive on this planet, exactly one weeps when its heart breaks. Not the chimpanzee that shares almost all your DNA. Not the elephant that mourns its dead. Just you. Crying isn't a flaw in the human design. It might be the single strangest thing your body does. And almost no one knows why. Let's start with the tears themselves. Because they are not what you think they are. Your eyes make three completely different kinds of tears, and they are not the same fluid. The first kind is always there, a thin film that coats your eye every time you blink, keeping it from drying out. You produce it constantly and never notice. The second kind shows up when something attacks the eye directly. Cut an onion, catch a gust of grit, and your eye floods to wash the threat away. Both of these are plumbing, maintenance. Every animal with eyes has some version of them. But the third kind only appears when you feel something too big to hold. And here's the part that should stop you. That third kind of tear is chemically different from the other two. In the 1980s, a biochemist named William Frey, working at a medical research center in St. Paul, Minnesota, did something almost no one had thought to do. He collected human tears, reflex tears from volunteers cutting onions, emotional tears from volunteers watching sad films. Then, he measured what was inside them. The emotional tears carried more protein. They carried stress hormones the body releases under pressure, and they carried leucine and enkephalin, one of the natural painkillers your own brain produces to dull suffering. Read that again. When you cry from grief, your body is flushing out the chemistry of stress, and it's doing it through your face. For a long time, that was the whole story people told. Crying is the body relieving pressure, like a valve releasing steam. Comforting, tidy, and almost certainly too simple. Because it doesn't explain the strangest thing about emotional tears at all. It doesn't explain why they're visible. So let's go back to the man who got stuck on exactly that question. In 1872, Charles Darwin published a book on how humans and animals express emotion. He had explained the eye, he had explained the wing. He had spent his life showing that every trait in every living thing existed because it helped that thing survive. But weeping defeated him. He looked at emotional tears and could find no purpose in them. They didn't frighten a predator. They didn't attract a mate. They made no sound, served no obvious function, and cost the body energy and salt to produce. Darwin concluded that tears were essentially a byproduct, an accident, a meaningless spillover from the muscles around the eye. For almost 100 years, that's where the science sat. The most emotional thing the human body does, written off as a glitch. But evolution doesn't usually keep accidents this elaborate for this long. And the modern answer turns Darwin completely upside down. Here's the shift. A tear, by itself, does nothing for the person crying. It blurs your vision. It signals that you're overwhelmed. It announces to everyone watching that you have lost control. If you think about crying as something that helps you, it makes no sense at all. So researchers stopped asking what tears do for the crier, and started asking what tears do to everyone else. The Dutch psychologist Ad Vingerhoutz at Tilburg University has spent decades on this question, and his answer reframes the whole thing. Emotional tears, he argues, are not for you. They are a signal, the most honest signal a human body can send. Think about what a tear actually is. It is silent, so it doesn't carry across a battlefield to an enemy. It is visible only up close, so it reaches the people standing nearest to you, the ones already in your circle. And crucially, it is almost impossible to fake on command. Anyone can shout. Anyone can claim to be in pain. But genuine tears are wired to genuine feeling in a way you cannot easily perform, which makes them trustworthy. A tear is your body saying to the people closest to you, I am not okay, and I cannot pretend otherwise. And we can prove the tear itself is doing the work. In 2009, the psychologist Robert Provine ran a simple, clever test. He took photographs of crying faces and digitally erased the tears, changing nothing else about the expression. The faces with tears were read instantly as sad. The very same faces with the tears removed turned ambiguous. Viewers couldn't agree on the emotion at all. Awe, concern, confusion, wonder. The feeling on the face hadn't changed, only the tear was gone. And without it, the message fell apart. Oren Hassan, a researcher at Tel Aviv University, pushed this even further. He pointed out that tears blur your own vision. They literally lower your defenses. To cry in front of someone is to stand in front of them half blind, unable to fight, Unable to flee, it is an act of surrender. And surrender to the right person is an invitation. It says, I am dropping my guard because I trust you to help me instead of hurt me. That's the turn. Crying didn't survive evolution because it relieved the crier. It survived because of what it pulled out of everyone around them. Watch what happens when a person cries in a room. People move toward them. Voices soften. Strangers who would otherwise keep their distance suddenly want to help. The tear is a trigger, and the response it triggers in other human beings is care. Across thousands of generations, the humans who could signal helplessness to their group and pull protection toward themselves survived a little more often than the ones who suffered in silence. The ones who could cry were the ones who got held. And it starts the day you're born. A newborn cries without tears at first. The tears arrive in the following weeks, right as the bond with a caregiver is forming. Before you had words, before you had a self, you had this. A way to reach across the gap and pull another person toward you when you could not survive alone. But there's one more layer, and it complicates the comforting version of this story. We tend to assume crying always makes you feel better. Let it out, and the weight lifts. Except the research is messier than that. Psychologists Lauren Bilsma and Jonathan Rottenberg, studying thousands of real crying episodes, found that crying only reliably makes people feel better under one condition: when someone comforts them. People who cried alone or who were met with indifference often felt no better afterward, sometimes worse. Sit with what that means. The relief you feel from crying isn't really coming from the tears. It's coming from the response, the hand on your shoulder, the person who stays. Crying was never designed to fix you from the inside. It was designed to reach someone outside. The healing was never in the salt water. It was in being answered, which leads to an uncomfortable thought about everything you were taught. You were told to hide it, to toughen up, to keep it together, to apologize the moment your eyes go wet. An entire culture trained you to treat the most uniquely human thing your body can do as a failure of strength. But it isn't weakness leaking out of you. It's the oldest message your species ever learned to send. A flag raised between one person and another that says, without a single word, I need you. The chimpanzee can't send it. The elephant can't send it. Out of every living thing that has ever opened an eye, only you were given this. So the next time the tears come, and you feel that reflex to look away, to swallow it, to be embarrassed, remember what's actually happening. Your body is doing something 8 million other species cannot. It is reaching for someone. It is admitting, in the most ancient language there is, that you were never built to carry the heavy things alone. We spend our lives learning to hold it in, and we forget that the tears were always meant to be seen.